Yes.
Hello, and welcome to the Financial Services Innovation Coalition podcast. My name is Brady Buckner, and I'm the president of FSIC, as we call it. FSIC is a leading advocate for economic empowerment and financial inclusion. Through a range of initiatives and partnerships, FSIC works to ensure all Americans, especially those in minority and underserved communities, have access to fair and equitable financial services and policy representation. Today's topic is media and financial services. Basically, we want to ask our guest today, how can more people participate in the financial services arena, either as a career or as somebody using those products? Mel O is a licensed certified financial planner, author, reporter, podcast, and radio host. Welcome, Mel, and thanks for being here today. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you'd like to talk about today.
Well, my name is Mel O. That is my real name. And like you just said, obviously, I'm a licensed certified financial planner with my own investment firm, Hot Moon Financial. My book is Finance is the Other F Word, Another F Word to Love. So just as the title says, I am pretty explicit when I talk. It's kind of a no BS approach. And I am also the host of the show Money and Metal on the Station Head app, where I teach financial literacy through current projects and through music context. And my whole goal with everything is to get as many people involved in financial literacy as possible to end up closing the gap between the 1% and the 99%. And I honestly think that the 99% are, the 1% is always going to get help. They're always going to have help, but the 99% is the one that's lacking. And I honestly do feel that if more people understood the challenges that Black and Brown people face, or the challenges in general, and you just focus on the numbers, that I think a lot of stuff that is up for debate would no longer be debatable, if that makes sense,
Sure, sure. So did you say that you do with a musical background in as to color your particular brand of financial services literacy or financial literacy?
Yeah, so I have a background in media and radio. And so when you're talking about finances, a lot of people check out, or they get concerned that they're not going to be able to follow it, or some person's going to speak with some BS jargon over their head. I'm being very good. I'm going to try very hard not to talk in my normal explicit tone. So bear with me. All right. If I do, like, give me a break. But I found that when you take financial literacy out of the context of this is a stock, this is a bond, this is the alternative minimum tax, and you take it out of all that stuff and you put it into a context of things that are happening, or maybe things that have happened in the careers of musicians, then people can start getting a grasp on how economics work and how finances work, but more importantly, how money flows through a system. And when you understand that, whether you realize it or not, you're actually learning financial literacy. And then it makes those conversations for stocks and bonds and all that stuff less intimidating. And that's really what my goal is the tagline of my podcast is where we talk about money and music without all the pretentious bullshit. And that's what I try to do, because that's not going to do any favors for anybody. And it's definitely not going to help our economy. And we know that having everyone participate in the economy is only better overall for everyone, regardless of, creed or color or whatever. That's why I don't understand why there's always so much pushback. Because
Right.
if you just look at the numbers, that's less people that's dependent on services. And we know that the Medicare, Social Security, and Medicaid make up 2/3 of our budget. So those are all the entitlement programs. So if you can get everybody firing on all cylinders, and you can get people involved in the economy, then you have less people dependent on any of the entitlement programs. And then they can come in and they can start, being entrepreneurs and do a whole bunch of stuff. It's just more for everybody. It's not I don't understand the lack mindset, or the belief that I have because you don't have. So that's the only reason why I have. And I think that we've done that for so long. And it just, if you look at the numbers, it just doesn't make sense. It's not, there's no basis of fact in that, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, we've talked about that since the beginning of our organization, is that if you help these large pools of people that are underrepresented in the economy and they have more money to spend in the economy, then the economy is going to be better for everybody, not just those communities. It will be better particularly for those communities because they have so little in many cases. So that's a good notion. We're like-minded on that. I will say a comment on financial literacy. I like your approach is definitely different. The banks, they want a lot of credit for doing financial literacy, but they only do it in relation to their products. You can't talk to a young kid coming out of high school about stocks and bonds and 401ks and everything when they don't have any money to pay for gas in their car. I call it level appropriate or person appropriate financial services, financial literacy. It's really important that we get that for the individual person. You can't just have one program. So I appreciate your approach.
Yeah, well, and you can take that a step further with my business, with stocks and bonds. You know, when I came up, I got licensed in '05. And when I came up, it was save for retirement, save for retirement, save for retirement, which is a very, and I'm not saying you shouldn't save for retirement, so don't get twisted what I'm saying, but what I'm telling you is that the industry that is very self-serving to the industry, every ounce of anything you have needs to go into your retirement savings account. And again, I'm not saying that saving retirement is a bad thing, absolutely not at all, but what I'm telling you is that, you know, there's a lot of people that die within the first couple of years of retirement, and there's people that want to go to Italy but then they wait too long and their knees are bad and they can't enjoy it.
Yes.
I mean, my best friend died at 40. Did he die at, no, I'm sorry, 40. I'm getting it all mixed up because no, he died at
He was too
45.
young. He was too young.
He was too young and he died in his sleep. And he had health issues, but it was unexpected and he didn't get to do anything because he was so concerned with this. And I'm like, man, we could all die tomorrow. So the approach in my industry, yes, save for retirement. And obviously I'm a certified financial planner. Yes, identify your goals. But you also need to understand that life is very short. And I just think that there's just some overall revamping that could be done in the financial industry in general. You know what I mean?
Sure. And the topic today is how can more people participate? And essentially what you're saying is there's a lot more factors that go into it than just financial services instruments. And if we want people to understand how they can participate either as a career or do a better job of managing their money, they really have to, look at the things you're talking about. And I do have a question, is that's the age-old question. How do I participate in financial services and save for retirement, but yet live my life? How would you say that you would describe a good rule of thumb or some advice on what's the balance? Can't spend it all because you might die tomorrow, because you might not die tomorrow, and then you're in a bad state when you retire.
Yeah. And I think that with the birth of social media, everybody's looking for the sound bite. And I've been asked that question so many times. What's the good rule of thumb that you can give to people? And the answer is there isn't one. And that doesn't fly well with people. But if you truly work with somebody like me, a certified financial planner who has a fiduciary duty to you, who knows what the hell they're talking about, you will realize that all of that changes based on the person's objectives, and all of that changes based on what's going on in the economy. 2008 wiped out so many people, and you cannot plan for something like that. Yes, you can alter portfolios, you can make sure people are invested in their risk tolerance, but then somebody gets dementia and now all of a sudden all their assets are being spent down, or somebody loses a leg. I mean, this happens to my clients all the time. They put off going into retirement because they want to work a little bit longer. Then they finally go into retirement with their significant other and they're dead within 2 years. And now their significant other who stayed working is now retired and their loved one is gone. And so there really is no rule of thumb. And there's all this BS out there with the 50%, 30%, 20%. And what I tell clients all the time is that your objectives run your portfolio. Your portfolio does not run your objectives. So you have to have a very good understanding for what it is you're trying to achieve, because then when I sit with you and tell you, okay, you told me this was your first objective, then you need to stop doing this. And often what happens is people go, well, I don't want to do that. And I'm like, well, then that's not your objective. So tell me what your objective is. And, I've had clients that have went into retirement and they're like, oh, I want to leave $100,000 to each kid. And I'm like, that's the most important thing to you. Yep, that's the most important thing to me. And I'm like, okay, cool. I do a financial plan and I'm like, this is what you can live off of. And this is what you need to do. And they look at the numbers and they say, well, I don't want to do that. And I'm like, well, that's not your objective then. Like it sounds nice to say there's a rule of thumb, and it sounds nice to say I want to leave my kids $100,000 each, but in practicality, it's not. And Social Security from Gen X down is changing. It's not going to be like how it's been for the boomers, and that's not shitting on the boomers. That's fact. So, we have to start looking at things differently. We can't, and my industry is like most industries, but my industry is very slow to change,
Well,
you
I'll give
know?
you my controversial take on, and I've got 30 plus years in the financial services industry. And I believe that what you said about Social Security is correct, because the baby boomers, they did an incredible job for themselves, but it was really kind of for themselves because they lived so long and took so much out of Social Security that maybe they needed, maybe they didn't. Some did, some didn't. That there's going to be big changes. People in my generation are already, they're finding out they're getting close to retirement and they're not going to have enough because we didn't really have pensions and we didn't put enough in our 401ks. So that's just my comment. I also would like to say, you kind of hit on something I never thought about before. And maybe a little bit is that people should try to understand, as part of the financial literacy, who should be giving you advice. Because I worked in a brokerage industry and somebody would come to a broker, a stockbroker, buying and selling stocks and bonds, and try to tell them advice on retirement. And that really wasn't an overall holistic look at what was going to happen to them. And one of the most important facts that a certified financial planner such as yourself is an expert at dealing with is, how are you going to spend your money once you retire? We talk so much about building up money for retirement, but then not how we're going to deal with it after. And that's one thing I admire about certified financial planners. Can you comment a little bit on that?
Yeah, I mean, when you go into retirement, you enter the distribution phase. And so you're at the end of your earning curve. I mean, unless you want to work part-time doing something fun, I mean, good on you, right? And the thing is that the boomers, it's easy to, I'm an Xer, it's easy to hate on the boomers, but the boomers, if you look at the numbers, they were just positioned in the sweetest spot. They are an extremely large generation. The Xers are a very small population generation. The millennials are bigger than us, but they're not as big as the boomers, and Gen Z, who are now aged 11 to 26. We're still waiting for them to figure out exactly how much of them that they will be. And so, of course, the constituents who are boomers, who are in Congress, are going to make laws to help their generations, their boomer generation. So it's like, it's easy to hate on them, but at the same time, if the roles were reversed and there's talk that the millennials will be the new boomers, it could flip on its tail. And so the thing is that when you retire, with boomers, they didn't put as much into Social Security as they're pulling out. That's the bottom line. And because we've had life expectancy extend, that's made it even worse. And the thing is that even if you can save enough for retirement, again, I'm not shitting on saving for retirement at all. Please do not get my words twisted. What I'm
No,
trying to tell
absolutely not.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's it's
what
very,
I'm
very
trying
important.
yeah, what I'm trying to tell you guys is that once you retire and you hit the end of your earning curve, you now go into distribution mode. And the thing is that if you don't have a distribution strategy in place and you spend down your money too fast, you have less money trying to get the same amount of return for you. It's time value of money, right? So you have less money trying to get the same amount of return for you, which means that it's going to be higher than your risk tolerances. And a lot of retirees don't get that. And then what happens is that you're going to find yourself caught up in another 2008 because the market cycles, and you're going to be chasing returns to try to get back the lifestyle because you pissed away your money too fast because you didn't have a solid distribution. plan in place. And so distributing your assets are just as important as gaining them. And so what I tell my clients is I'm like, look, you know what? I know you want to retire early, but you can't. Okay, I'm sorry. You don't have enough money to live 30 years in the future. So what I recommend to you is that you get a job that you really like and you ask for more vacation and you travel now. While your knees are good, while you're still earning money, you go
Right,
do the
right.
want to do now. Because this whole fallacy of extras being able to retire at 55 and 60, unless you're in, the 1%, is just not, it's not there. If you have an extremely low style of living, then you could probably pull it off. But I mean, we just saw in the last 2 years historic rate hikes, very fast, very quick. And a lot of those effects of those rate hikes we're still feeling. They're still starting to compound. So there's a lot of things that you can't control. And that's why I say you just have to working with the CFP. And I know this sounds self-serving, and I don't really care, working with the CFP, this is the stuff we talk about. And the fact that a lot of people, specifically social media influencers who I can't stand, who are financial influencers, don't know their head from a hole in the ground, are not fiduciaries. They do not give
Right.
a shit about you. So they're not giving you advice for what you're trying to do. And so much of our younger generations, millennials and Gen Z, that's where there's the vacuum of financial literacy. So they find themselves tuning into social media to get it. And it's not good. It's not helping us move forward. You know what I mean?
Sure. And I don't want to be very clear. My parents are baby boomers. So when I say things like that, I'm thinking that my mom's in the room listening. So we don't hate them, but I am curious as to what they really think about the fact that, you know, the system has worked for them, but the way they legislated and things have gone, the system is working less and less, but it's not all their fault. It's not all.
Absolutely.
They did very well for themselves. I will say that.
Yeah. And
And
my
they worked
mother's,
really, really hard. So.
yeah. And my mother's a boomer. Like I said, that's not saying anything that boomers don't work, but you can't deny the policies that worked in their favor. And for some boomers, not all boomers, but or people in general to say, well, they can pull themselves up by their bootstraps like I did. Or, I have $1 million in my 401k because I went out and worked really hard and got a job. Everybody works hard. You think the dude flipping your burgers ain't working hard every day? Like, come on, this is ridiculous. That's ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? It
Yeah,
just doesn't make
I do. And I've always said that. And now at my career, I'm pretty good at what I do and I'm pretty efficient and everything. That people that work those jobs work way harder than I do.
oh
You
yeah.
know, they have to work extremely hard during the busy times and everything. So I wish that I wish that we could find a way to reach more of those people so that they could participate in this because we've ended up talking a fair amount about retirement. And that's, I've asked several young people, what do you think about the future? And often they don't really know because things are changing so fast and they don't feel like they don't understand the way we did that. If you work hard, you're going to have all these opportunities because they don't believe that anymore, whether that's right or wrong. And so to talk to them about retirement is getting harder and harder. But yeah, we still have to try. And so that's why we need people out there like you, Mel, that are, fighting the good fight, that are trying to tell people about these things. In fact, you have done financial literacy training in your community. Is that right?
Yeah, I've taught financial literacy at both the women's and men's shelter, which is a whole nother story. And I've also taught I'm not military, but my entire family is military. And I have taught financial literacy to veterans. I've also taught financial literacy to their caregivers, because if we have veterans that are, really bogged down in PTSD, they need care. They need pretty
Right.
consistent care, even if they're physically okay. And that takes a toll on the caregivers who are also trying to run the household and the finances. So I've done that. I've also spoke through junior achievement to some of the high schools around here. And I have also talked to the Rock Academy of Performing Arts. And I also will be speaking to the Music Alliance about that stuff, because for me, everything comes down to financial literacy. My grandparents did not understand money. They were Great Depression era kids, and they were terrified of anything that was not FDIC insured. And because of that, they incorporated a lot of these beliefs with money, have and have nots and stuff like that. And I knew even when I was little that the people who were making money understood it. And there was really no way for me to get ahead in the money game if I didn't understand it. And that's why financial literacy is such a big deal, because you can, I mean, look at the lotto winners. How many lottery winners? It's like, no, we don't need education, we need money. No, you don't. No, you don't. How many people have won the lotto and pissed it away immediately because they have absolutely no money skills? And if you think that it is impossible to piss away money needlessly, I dare you to read any of the stories on these lottery winners, millions and millions and millions of dollars, where had they had a proper education, they could have taken that money and set themselves up like the Rockefeller dynasty and their families, and they still could have went out and partied and, all that stuff. So it comes down to just understanding what the hell is going on in our economy so that you can have it work for you. That's why I'm just such a financial literacy person. My radio show, podcast, book, it's all based on that.
Excellent. Well, just one of the reasons I had you on is you're a true person of the people that are going to the hardest places to talk about these things, because nobody would think about that these folks have so little that it's not important, because a lot of them hopefully are going to end up not in that situation, and it would be nice for them to remember your words of advice. So I think that's it. Mel, did you have any other last comments that you wanted to make, or questions that you would ask somebody? Any last comments?
I don't know. I mean, I do have a last comment, but it's going to be a little odd out of the context of our conversation, but it will be in line with the FSIC's kind of vision statement. I would encourage people to know your numbers. And before you pass judgment on a person due to their sex or sexual orientation or their color, that you understand where the numbers come from. Because when you take things out of, this group is lazy or this group isn't as smart, or when you take it out of the context and you do your research and not what the politicians are saying. I'm talking about real research, look at your sources, figure out your stuff. With all of my shows that I've done on my podcast over 400 shows, but with included the radio shows, I'm probably up to close to 700 shows that I've done now. And I've researched so many topics that there's been so many times where I went into a topic thinking one way and came out thinking completely different. And it's uncomfortable at first because it challenges what you believed all these years, and you don't want to think about it and go, man, I was wrong all these years, because that doesn't make you feel very good about yourself. But it's our obligation to look at the numbers and take out our confirmation bias and realize that, a lot of the conversations that are being had, if the numbers back it up, shut up. If the data is clean, you're done. There's no more conversation. I don't care how you feel about something. So I would encourage people to get into the numbers. If you don't like Democrats or you don't like Republicans, great. Don't like them for a variety of other reasons, but don't come at me with some bullshit about numbers. Make sure that your numbers are right. And if there's data to back it up, then you have an obligation as a functioning person who is learned in this society, that you see what's going on and you step up and you change it in whatever way you have the potential to change. That, I guess, would be, even though it's off topic of what we've talked about today, that would be my parting thought. Because there's been so many times that I've realized, wow, I was completely wrong on that. It just happened this morning again. And it's very enlightening. It's very enlightening.
I would agree with you that, and you're a rare person. It seems these days people have so much of their personality wrapped up in their opinions that they're afraid to go, oh, wow, I didn't know that. I would love to know more. And when it comes to financial literacy and people being involved in that, you can't just expect somebody to get out of high school when they didn't have a math teacher for 5 years and then go to college and learn their math and then go work on Wall Street. It just doesn't really work that way. It has to
Yeah.
be, there has to be more to it. So, well, we're going to depend on you. You've been with as a network member here at FSIC now for, a couple months, and I've just been really impressed with the work that you've done, and we appreciate that. So I think that'll end our conversation today, but we'd love to have you back. There's many things that you could talk about that would be helpful for the people that we're trying to help, the communities we're trying to help. So with
Yeah,
that, I'll say thank you
and
for, oh, go ahead.
one more thing, I was just gonna say, if you guys are interested, you can check out the website finances, plural, finances, the other F word.com. And that has my, it has all my links, but it has the 400 plus episodes from the podcast where we've talked about a lot of different stuff. So if you were so inclined, finances, the other F word.com.
Great.
That's it.
I almost forgot. That's very important, because if somebody has somebody or knows somebody that could use Mel's advice, they should reach out. So with that, I'm going to say thank you again for watching our video podcast today. If you have any questions or concerns, contact us at fsicoalition.org, and have a good day.